guys, Eve here, and today I've decided to do another how-to video on how to do your base makeup, I guess. It's not really any of the contouring or blush or anything like that. It's basically how I get my makeup to last throughout the day. I have combination skin, so in certain areas of my skin it's more oily, certain areas of my skin are more dry, and I also have acne-prone skin, so I've got a lot of stuff to deal with. But if you guys want to see how I do my foundation, go ahead and keep on watching. Let's go. Alright, so at the beginning of this process, you want to start out with clean and moisturized skin. So I washed my face and then I moisturized with the Alba Botanica Even Advanced Sea Moss Moisturizer with SPF 15. This stuff is really nice. It's got that SPF in it, which I need because I'm super fair, but it's not heavy and it doesn't smell like sunscreen. It smells clean and it just sinks right into the skin and it feels really light. My skin's a little bit tacky right now from the moisturizer, so once I moisturize my face, I like to let that sink in for a little bit just so that it has a chance to actually be absorbed, and then I go in with a primer. I have combination skin, so the center of my face is a little bit more oily and then the sides of my face are a little bit more dry. I get some dry patches around here, and I also get dry patches right around the nose area, like the corners of it. So because my skin is oilier and my pores tend to be a little bit larger, I like a primer that will fill in the pores and smooth it out, but that won't cling to my dry patches. And this primer right here, this is the Pure Correcting Primer. It's the Prep and Perfect one. There's a few different correcting primers that they have. This one's my favorite. This is the one that I use on most clients too, especially for teenagers, because I find that it doesn't break out their skin, but it also smooths it out. It has kind of a weird texture when you blend it in. So when you put it on, it's like really smooth, but you can see like it catches right there, but it blends away. It's interesting, but it does a really good job at smoothing and sort of mattifying and filling in the pores without like clogging the pores. And I focus it on the center of my face, so like this area, and then I put it on the cheeks as well just to kind of make sure everything is even, but it's like I put it here and then I just kind of take the excess and put it to the sides, if that makes sense. Probably doesn't make sense. And then after the primer is on, you want to let that sink in for a little bit. Sometimes what I do, just to make sure that it really stays, shaking this up, I use the Milani Make It Dewy Setting Spray, or I use my Pixie Glow Mist and I spray it on a beauty blender or a sponge of some sort. I just kind of press it into the center of my face, and this gives these areas a little bit more hydration as well, which you're probably saying, but Eve, you said you were oily in those areas. Yes, but I have a lot of texture, and this kind of helps smooth out that texture. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and let that set into my skin for a little bit, and I'm going to put on my eyebrows while that happens. Alright, so the next step is to go ahead and color correct, and I'm grabbing my Wet n Wild Mega Cushion color corrector in the shade, is it just green? Yeah, in the shade green, and it's for redness, and I do have acne prone skin as well. So it's actually a cushion color corrector, so it comes in like a little thing like this, and it comes with a little tiny sponge, which I have been using. It's not a super strong color corrector, and I think that's why I like it. Like, it kind of goes on almost like white with a green tint. But I put this on anywhere where my skin does have redness, and I put this over my blemishes as well. Alright, so now that I'm all color corrected, this is the secret to making it last all day. You just want to layer product after product after product. So you want to layer color product, then setting spray, then color product, then setting spray, then color product, then setting spray. I'm going to use my Dewy Finish Setting Spray by NYX. This one is amazing. It does give you that dewy finish without being too radiant or too oily looking, but it also sets your makeup, so it makes it stay. And I think that's what's hard about finding dewy setting sprays, is you want something that makes it stay like a matte setting spray, but gives the finish of a dewy setting spray, and this one does that perfectly. And then I want to kind of pounce my Real Technique sponge right over that, and then we want to go in with our foundation. So, because I have combination skin, I do want something that's going to look like skin. I don't really like foundations that are overly matte, and I also don't like foundations that are overly dewy, and because I have acne, I want to make sure that it has enough coverage. So the foundation that I'm using today, because I feel like it checks off all those highly complicated boxes is the Wet n Wild Photo Focus foundation. This one is a little bit darker than my skin tone. I need to purchase the lighter one offline. It is in the shade Nude Ivory. And what I basically do, because it does kind of set, like it dries down on its own and sets pretty fast, I paint it on in small sections. And then I take a foundation brush and I buff it in circular motions. And I do it in small sections so that it doesn't like dry down before I get it all buffed out. Oh, it's actually not that bad of a shade match. Paint it on my forehead and a little bit on my nose. What I will say is that this foundation does have a tendency to cling to dry patches, which isn't super fun, so I do have to be careful with how I apply it around the nose, and that's kind of why I put that illuminating setting spray and focus it on the nose after I put on my primer, because I don't want any foundations to stick to those dry patches. It's like medium buildable coverage. It's not like straight on high coverage because it's not super thick, and I think the more watery consistency kind of adds to that. Yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and let this foundation dry and do a little bit of my eyes, and then I'll come back and add another layer. This is my life. This is my life. Alright, so I will be right back. I just hit my ear. Alright, so now that I've done my eyes and this has had quite a bit of time to dry, it's still a little tacky because that's just how this foundation is, but I'm going to go ahead and take the same foundation and we're going to take it on a little spatula, but we're only going to apply it on any spots that still need a little bit more coverage. I'm not like a super full coverage girl. I mean, I end up being super full coverage, but I'm going to put this on the spots that need a teensy bit more rather than giving my whole skin 2 layers. This way I feel like my skin has time to breathe. And the second layer, I always use a beauty blender for. I can't say words when I'm like this. Alright, so if you're like me and you still have some acne peeking through after that, don't worry. I have a way to cover that up. So the way to cover that up is actually with concealer. So I'm going to grab my Tarte Shape Tape Concealer. This is one of the reasons why I actually don't buy concealers in a lighter shade than my actual skin tone. I use it to spot conceal, so you just want to take the Shape Tape, especially since it's so high coverage, but you just want to put it on any spots that are still sort of peeking through. Just dot it. You don't need to like spread it. That ends up being way too much product, let me tell you. And then you take the beauty blender once again. You need to stop calling this a beauty blender because it's not a beauty blender. So I think I've talked about this before with blending out concealer over blemishes, but you don't want to like spread it around. You kind of want to just tap the concealer on that area so that it blends into the skin, into the foundation, and you don't lose the coverage from the concealer that you use. Leave that for a little bit. We actually want to go ahead and conceal our under eyes and any red areas, like naturally red areas. So I take some dots, put it on my under eyes, and then I put 2 dots by my nose, and then a dot on the tippity top of my chin, and then usually my forehead has some acne that has already been covered with the concealer, so I don't really highlight there or anything like that. And then I just want to take the beauty blender, blend it out. This I will kind of spread it around just because you don't need to use that much product for these areas, but I do want it to be smooth and go over the entire area rather than just have those dots. Blemishes are different than normal everyday coverage. Then there's a few spaces that I like to set right away. So the first area that I like to set is with a setting brush, a tiny one, and I like to set right underneath my eyes. This will prevent creasing because I do have a little bit of fine lines right there. And then I also have like this one forehead line right here that likes to pop up, so I actually bake that area. So I just take my sponge and I push the powder in, and then I also like to bake my smile lines, which are these ones right there. Hopefully prevent those from creasing up too much. And then if I'm feeling like my pores are really big in this area, I will bake right in between my eyebrows. Alright, so I finished my under eyes, so now I'm going to go ahead and set the rest of my face. So using the big powder brush, we're going to take my RC Mano color powder. We're just going to kind of buff that powder onto the areas I'm going to put extra color on, so the areas I'm going to contour, blush, and highlight on. If you are someone who's super oily all over, go ahead and set your entire face. But since I'm combination, I don't want to set too much. But I do like to have a powder base to help blend out my contour and bronzer and blush and highlight and all that stuff. Now make sure that you wipe off your bakage. I don't know if I filmed that. It ended up wiping off when I set the majority of my face. This is just the under contour bakage. But if you guys want to see a contour video, let me know in the comments down below and I'll be sure to do that. But I'm going to go ahead and take my NYX Dewy Finish Setting Spray and set my whole face with this. Alright, so now that everything on my face is done, this is the finished look. I hope that this helped you guys in some way with figuring out how to make your foundation last throughout the day, especially if you have my skin type. Please keep in mind again that people's skin works differently with different types of foundations, primers, powders, all that stuff. This is just what I do, and I hope that you can use it as a guide and change it up as needed. If you guys like this video, go ahead and give me a big thumbs up and let me know what kind of videos you guys want to see in the comments down below. I do have some Halloween videos in the works for you guys, so don't you worry your spooky little heads. If you are new to my channel, make sure you subscribe before you leave, and I will see you in my next video. Bye guys. With the Alba I can't say this word. Alba Botanica. We're fine. We're not in super winter mode yet. It's still fall. It's still sunny here in Chicago. It's fine. It's fine. It's like the worst part. Okay. No contouring, highlighting, none of that.